Yeah, alcoholic. Getting a little closer to 3 years, but until you actually have it, you know, can't claim because you never know. I could go back out later today. I mean, that's every day is a freaking miracle, and I have no control over my sobriety. It's just a gift. So I kind of wanted to touch on, I guess the topic of this show would be, alcoholism and prescription medications and all that. Um, I've already said before I was raised by a shrink, so I had everything under the book: morphine, Demerol, diazepam, Quaaludes, Real 714, 712s, methaqualone, Valium, oh God, Placidril, Dexedrine, Black Beauties, all the barbiturates and everything. So I grew up in a frickin' my dad, my adoptive father, was a drug addict, shrink. So we had pharmacy jars in the thousands at home. I'm I grew up and he was dealing them to the patients and all that. But that's a long story. But I so I've been around it a lot and all that stuff. And yesterday I got a colonoscopy where they go up your intestines and all that, and they gave me anesthetic. So naturally, I'm freaking, the stuff that's supposed to normally knock people out cold, and they're supposed to be out while they're doing the operation. I'm awake, asking for more, more anesthesia and all that. It just felt so good being on that anesthesia and all that. Then, so fortunately, that turned out okay. And then after the operation, a colonoscopy, you flush the day before, and all that to clean out your intestines. They go up inside you with a camera in your intestines, and they look at your colon for polyps and all that, and they remove them because it's like the third cause of cancer. But anyways, I was going to the bathroom after I got home, and I frickin' found this when I went poop. I have no frickin' idea how that got up my ass, and I don't know what to do. I have no idea how that ended up when I was going to the bathroom for the last time after my colonoscopy. So I'm gonna ask around and find out about that. You can tell it's like the tip of a syringe. But anyways, a common problem, and a lot of people I've known, and myself, I think I've probably relapsed a few times before off of a medical procedure. It just basically brain chemistry wise, a lot of the painkillers and drugs that you get trigger the same chemicals in your brain that alcohol does. It's all about brain chemistry, and it triggers the euphoria stuff going on in your brain. And natural, if you're an alcoholic or an addict, you want more. So a medical procedure is no different. So after the colonoscopy, I thought, well, I'd like to take this a little step further. But fortunately I didn't. This is the day after it, but I'm still a little bit woozy from it. But that's been a common cause of our relapse, when you're giving prescription pain meds or sleep meds or whatever. And so that's something you really want to watch out for. So you want to be on high alert. If you're going to get a medical procedure done where you're going to receive drugs for pain, or you had an accident or something and you're already on drugs for pain, or sleep meds, and all that stuff can be triggers to go back to alcohol or drugs. And like I've said before, I'm genetically an alcoholic. It's a long frickin' story, but I grew up with both in the household, and I gravitated towards alcohol, and I had morphine and everything else You know, I always doubled them, combined them, because the alcohol by itself wasn't doing the trick anymore, because I drank so much that it wasn't working. But yeah, take them as prescribed by the doctor, and try to deal with the pain as best as you can. But some people think, well, you shouldn't take them at all, and I don't think people should suffer and be in pain either. I mean, if you're in serious pain and you had a serious freaking operation or something, and you need pain meds, you need pain meds. I don't think you should be the martyr and freaking torture yourself by not taking the pain meds. You just got to be aware that you're going to be really, really vulnerable, and you just triggered a lot of stuff, and you are at more risk for a relapse. And depending on how long you're on them, you'll go through withdrawals and all that stuff. I mean, I have a bad back, and I feel really, really sorry for people that are in the program or sober and they have horrible back problems and they got to go on very, very addictive painkillers off and on legitimately because they have real back pain. It's just it's really horrible for some people. So. And I don't know if maybe I have time, I can get into this. When you mix the painkillers and the alcohol, or you mix certain drugs or other drugs, it can wind up in death. Okay, I'll just get into it. And there's over 100,000 deaths a year in the United States. I don't know about the world. 100,000 deaths from people taking pharmaceutical drugs as prescribed from their doctor. So that means they took like one pill every 4 hours like they were supposed to, or every 8 hours, or one pill a day, or whatever. They were taking the medication as prescribed from their doctor, and they died from the medication they were prescribed. And that's 100,000 people in the United States. Now, on the flip side, maybe it saved 100,000 people or 200,000 people. I don't know. But those are just the statistics that they don't tell you about. Then there's a lot of drugs that have really bad side effects, and there's a lot of deaths and a lot of crazy things that go on, like I'm going to get political here, the mass shootings, a lot of those killings, and a lot of that stuff, is from people being doped up on pharmaceutical drugs or being doped up on drugs. There's a lot of deaths that happen from people being, and collateral damage from people being doped up on stuff, and the media doesn't cover it because because the large pharma companies basically own the media. That's the bottom line. So anything that involves large amounts of money in the media, you're never going to hear the truth about. And for the pharmaceutical companies that are knowingly selling these drugs that are harmful to the people, basically until the lawsuits outweigh the profits, they're going to keep selling it. So until there's more people suing the company for the drug being bad than the profit they're making from the drug, they're going to still continue to see it. It's all capitalism. It's all dollars and cents. It's all money. So, two friends of mine that were alcoholics, and these weren't just casual acquaintances, these were actual friends of mine that I knew. And one, I haven't talked to Mark in like 6 months, and I call his mom up, and whoa, what's Mark up to? Well, Mark's in an urn by the fireplace. And I'm like, well, what happened to Mark? And she just said the doctors killed him. Was the first words out of her mouth. The doctors killed Mark. And being a shrink son, I realized that could be a possibility. So I asked, can you check what drugs that Mark was on? Can you go up to the pharmacy? Can you go up to the file cabinet in the bathroom and see what it was? And it was Seroquel. And he was on a different medication. He was an alcoholic. A lot of time alcoholics need to be on meds to manage their brain stuff going on and their sobriety or whatever, and they switched to Seroquel, and that's basically what killed Mark. And so I looked up online, naturally, I Googled it and everything, and there's mass lawsuits. People suing um, for different drugs, and there was a bunch of lawsuits for Seroquel in particular. And I have another friend of mine. He was an actual friend, kind of a casual acquaintance. And his wife said that he came home, he had one beer, he took a Seroquel, and he died. You know. And Mark and Richard, that I'd known off and on for years, had drank and taken everything under the sun. And then they try this new pharmaceutical drug that's all hyped up and everything, and they die from it. So I'm really, really leery. I always look up the deaths, the lawsuits and everything, and the side effects concerning any drug, whether it's an antibiotic or whatever. I use real caution. It's kind of funny, from somebody that just used to use street cocaine and street heroin and street everything, and then now that I've been working on sobriety for years, it's like I've gone completely the other direction, from being in the basement of a party snorting some weird powder or eating some blue pill or taking some homemade acid to being hyper paranoid about these pharmaceutical drugs. But yeah, and a lot of famous people have died, it's covered up about the medication. I don't want to bring famous people's names in. I don't want to bring up names. I don't want to break people's anonymity, but a lot of people have, yeah, famous or non-famous, I guess it doesn't matter. I guess this was part one. It looks like going into part two.